Hey everyone, in light of the tragic death of George Floyd and just kind of all the racial tension and everything that's going on in our country right now, in our city, I wanted to take a minute to just share some of the things that I've been thinking about and learning about. Just in reaction to, if we look at George Floyd, there are some things, there's so much that we can disagree about, but I think what we can all agree about is we saw several people who had power in that situation, and we had one person who didn't. And we saw the tragic outcome of the powerless person in that situation. And so, regardless of the motivations or anything else, what in my humble opinion, we saw was an abuse of power, right? And or an abuse of privilege, right? And we might ask ourselves, there's all this argument about white privilege, but let's just take white off of there for a second, and let's just talk about privilege and ask the question, do I have privilege, right? Am I a privileged person? And if I am a privileged person, then it seems like there's probably a responsibility I have to steward that power and that privilege well. So am I a privileged person? Well, let's ask the question, am I privileged? Well, in this country, attractive people are privileged, right? So am I attractive? Am I wealthy? Now, what do I mean by wealthy? I mean, does your family earn more than $30,000 a year? If so, you're privileged, right? Am I strong, right? Right down to the playground bullies, right? He was privileged and powerful because he was strong. Am I intelligent, right? Do I have a privilege there? Am I in the racial majority or in any majority, right? Then I have privilege because I am in the majority, right? That could even be the political majority. Maybe my political party is in power right now, right? Then I have privilege. Right? Do I have a badge and a gun? Well, then I definitely have power and privilege that needs to be stewarded well. So I think in this situation, we could probably say that most of us have some kinds of privilege that we need to steward well. And how should we address that? Like, what does it mean? What does it look like to steward that privilege well? Well, let's look at the one person who is more privileged than anyone else, right? Jesus, right? And it says, Jesus, who was God, is God, right, came down from heaven, humbled himself, became a human to be like us. What does God ask us to do? I love the words of Micah 6:8. It says, and I'm probably going to butcher my memory verse here, but it says, God has told you, O man, what is good, and what does he require of you but to do justice. I love those words, do justice. That doesn't mean be just, like just to act justly. No, do justice, like go right the injustice in the world. To love kindness and to walk humbly with my God, right? And so if that's the situation, if that's what God calls us to do, then we should do exactly what it says in Philippians 2, that the same attitude that was in Jesus should be in us, right? And we should reach across the aisle, go to the people who have less privilege than we do and befriend them, because that's what Jesus did. It said in John 15 something or another, right? Jesus says, I don't call you my servants anymore, I call you my friends, right? So we're not talking about, and there's nothing wrong with going to a soup kitchen or a food pantry or somewhere else that you can serve downtown. That's great, as long as it's done for the right reason, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about becoming friends with somebody who has less privilege than you. And it may not be racial or socioeconomic privilege. It might be somebody who is disabled. It might be somebody who is, if I'm in high school, someone who is less attractive than me, or less popular than me, or less intelligent than me, right? But it's taking the time out of my life to befriend people who are vastly different from me. And you know what? That really has to come from the person of privilege to the person of less privilege, because it's a lot harder for somebody who's underprivileged to go befriend somebody who lives in a gated community with a big front yard. Okay, but it's a lot easier for us who grew up in privilege to come downtown where we live. My house is right over there somewhere. To come downtown and to befriend people who are maybe a little different from us. But you know what? Who are just as good and just as important, and who God loves just as much as he loves me. And who I can learn from. And I'll tell you what, that's what we've done. Okay? And I want to encourage everyone to do the same. That doesn't mean you have to move downtown. But you know what? I want to extend just an open invitation. Come down. Go for a walk with me. Let's have a barbecue and invite some neighbors over. Right? Let's get to know people who are different from ourselves. Right? And not just, and obviously everyone can't come over for a barbecue at my house. But everybody can think of a way to reach across the aisle to someone who's different, right? If I'm a Republican, hey, you know what? Why don't you go befriend a Democrat? If I'm a Democrat, why don't you go befriend a Republican? Doggone it. We could use a lot less division in our country. Go make friends. Go listen. And you know what? The more you listen, the more likely you are to be offended. So keep listening. That's the key. Keep listening after you get offended. I watched a documentary last night that was about white parents adopting black children. I have black children. Okay, I'm half white. And I was horribly offended at one point. And I was like, man, and I was tempted just to shut it off. And I was like, no, these people are thoughtful people. They have a different point of view than me. Maybe, just maybe, there's something I can learn. And there was. And I learned a ton. And I saw a different perspective. So I want to encourage you to listen after you're offended and to ask yourself, why would a rational human being hold this position? Because that should be our assumption, that all these people are rational, or at least just as rational as I am. So why would a rational human being, or someone who's at least as rational as me, hold this opinion? Try to understand. Anyhow, that's what I'm asking, guys. And I'm inviting you guys to come on downtown, okay? Or I'm inviting you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and to go somewhere where to go into the, because that's kind of our mandate. That's kind of our job. That's kind of our purpose for existing, to go into all the world and make disciples. And I want to tell you one thing. I have never, ever, ever discipled a person with whom I was not already friends. Okay? I've never discipled a person until I became friends with them first. So first, go make friends. And be kind. All right. That's my 2 cents. Love y'all.